Hi, everybody. Welcome to the January meeting of the Bike Walk Commission. I'm Tanner Thompson. I'm the chair. We have a lighter than normal agenda this month because I have been out on vacation for the last 2.5 weeks and just got back last night. I want to thank Greg for putting the agenda together for this month's meeting. We've got a couple updates on budget. Well, we got an update on the TMP budget and then an item to discuss our own budget. But first, before anything else, we do have time for introductions and public comment. So I think currently in the meeting, we had everybody here is either a commissioner or a frequent friend of the commission, but we have a couple people in the lobby that I think haven't been before. So if either of you would like to put up your hand and introduce yourself, we would welcome that so that we can get to know you. We would love if these meetings could be hybrid in person so that we could meet some more people. But in the meantime, this is the best way we have to meet each other in our regular meetings. So if either of you would like to introduce yourself, or if anybody in the meeting has any public comment, go ahead and put your hand up. Harvey, go ahead. All right, Delene, you might have to promote Harvey. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Harvey. Tanner invited me along. I live Devil's Garden, Reddington Avenue. Yeah, I'm interested in what you guys have going on.
Thanks, Harvey. I know Harvey is particularly interested in sidewalks. When I first met him, he was like, "What can you do about sidewalks?" And I was like, "Well, you're talking to the right guy." So thanks for joining, Harvey. Anybody else for an introduction or a public comment? Oh, we just had a new person join, a name that I don't recognize. If you would like to introduce yourself or give any public comment, feel free to put your hand up. Otherwise, we will move forward with the agenda. Alrighty. Oh, you know what? I do have one public comment that was sent to me. I had an email conversation with another friend of the commission, a frequent attendee, Brad Craighead, who leads the Norwalk Green Association. And Greg, or not Greg.
Did anyone else lose Tanner?
Yes, Tanner seems to have dropped off somehow.
Okay.
No, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes,
no,
now we can.
Sorry, had a little blip there in my monitor, I think. Brad, who I was mentioning, did just text me saying he can't get in to the meeting. Oh, looks like he just got into the meeting. Brad, is that you? Go ahead.
Yeah, hey Tanner, I'm listening only. I'm driving on 95. Thank you.
Gotcha. Well, I'll give a little summary of the email conversation that we had. And if you want to correct me, I guess I would prefer that you keep your attention on driving. So
Sure.
Feel free to write me later if you want me to correct anything. But Brad, I think Brad even commented at our last meeting that he's gotten over 100 responses from residents around the East Avenue corridor, concerned about safety and traffic speed along East Avenue, and he is hoping that the study for East Avenue makes it into the 2023 budget, and we're going to hear about that in a minute. So I think if we want to have a discussion about that, we should wait until after TMP gives their budget update. So we also have a hand from M.A. Salgado. Go ahead.
Oh, hi. So, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I think I was a new username you were talking about. I just wanted to
Yes.
introduce myself. My name is Manny Salgado, and I just, I've lived here now since September, so brand new. So I just thought I'd join and check out what's happening with Walk walkability and biking in Norwalk. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Manny, and welcome. We meet once a month. I'm not sure how you found us. Do you mind sharing how you found us?
Sure. Yeah. I kind of, when, moving here, I just did a lot of research on Instagram actually for different organizations and things just to help me understand the community better. And you guys were one of them that I found. And I think also just kind of Googling like the city website with the bike and walk committee, that sort of thing. So.
Gotcha. Well, then I want to introduce you briefly to Emily and give Emily kudos for running our Instagram page. Emily Berneman is our commissioner and also runs all of our digital media. So thanks, Emily, for keeping our Instagram page on point. And
Yeah.
welcome, Manny.
Yeah, welcome, Manny. Really quickly, Tanner, on that note, do you mind if I share 2 upcoming events that we have in our calendar that I think are worth noting?
Sure.
Specifically the Resilient South
ahead.
Norwalk and then the street project film. So 2 things happening. First, this Thursday is the Resilient South Norwalk Public Workshop. It's on, more details are on our bike walk calendar, and I'll make sure to add it to our link tree as well. It's going to be a public meeting to learn more about the climate change and impacts on South Norwalk. So I think it would be beneficial for one of our members to attend and give input where needed. And then the other thing that's happening next Thursday in Fairfield is the street project film. And I think is it Rebecca who brought this up to me? Someone shared it with us, and I thought it would be really good to share for our Bike Walk Commission as well, for any interested people that want to see this film at the library. It's free. So definitely, if you're interested, I have that on the calendar as well, and I'll add that to our link tree.
Thanks for bringing that up, Emily. I actually just discovered that earlier today, and I wanted to take a minute after we get to all the other agenda items to fill people in a little bit more about what that documentary is, and maybe even suggest that we have a screening here in Norwalk. But let's get back to that, and after the agenda items that we've already got lined up. Was there one more hand up? Brian, I think I saw your hand up.
I put it up by mistake. I'm all good. I was trying to see if there was a chat. All good.
Gotcha. We do have a queue. I just opened up the Q&A, and it was just Manny introducing himself. So thanks again for coming, Manny. So without further ado, let's move on to the agenda that we have. I believe the first presenter is Garrett to talk about the TNP budget. So go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. So Garrett Bilal, the Assistant Director for Transportation, Mobility, and Parking. And I just wanted to start by wishing everyone, hope everyone had a safe and healthy New Year's. So tonight we're really excited to be able to present our fiscal year 23-24 budget. I think it's the first time we've done this, but it was really developed based on community needs, based on our achievements from 2023, our goals moving into 2024, opportunities for public-private partnerships, state and federal match funding, and then of course staffing and resource limitations. So the budget that we're going to present, we think it's realistic to what we can accomplish in 2024. Hopefully you'll see that a significant amount of the budget goes to keeping our transportation system in a state of good repair. Also with the budget, so our desire of presenting it tonight was really to provide you with the details as early as possible, so you can advocate for where our goals align with your goals, whether it's meeting the needs for biking or walking throughout the city, but then you can voice your support to the commissions, whether it's the financial committee, BET, council members, and be part of the public hearings, because I think there's a lot of unique projects that we have going for us this year. But I did want to start by kind of talking a little bit about our accomplishments for 2023, and hopefully you see that captured in the budget that I'll share on the screen shortly. But it's been a really busy year. Over the course of this year, we've added brand new bike racks at all our train stations. We added, I think Greg might have showed this before, but 5.6 miles of new bike lanes in the city. So the city total, I believe, is at 15.8 right now. And of course, we have our community connectivity project, which will commence this spring and will formalize a north-south and east-west bike route through the city. So we'll add several more miles come this spring. Over the past year, we also were able to establish new sidewalks as part of that community grant program on Hunter's Lane, which is really exciting. And then, of course, we had a Safe Routes to School project that was many, many years in the making on Highland Avenue, and we were able to add just this past fall another mile of sidewalk, improved crossings, a raised crosswalk, and a couple RRFBs on that roadway. Over the past year, we've worked on a design survey for the Yankee Doodle garage and put it out to the community to decide what the future of that garage looked at. You know, we really looked at how we could improve the aesthetics, but also improve the customer experience, and the community voted on a new facade that's going to be a blue template, and that'll be moving forward to design this year. Over the past year, we really finalized improvements to the Webster Street lot, green infrastructure, and at the end of the season, it resulted in the paving of that lot. We've worked on completing, and we're very close to opening this spring another mile of the Norwalk River Valley Trail. We're just working on some of the finishing touches, some of the steel deliveries for a section of the boardwalk that's going to connect to New Canaan Avenue. But that's near completion, and looking forward to a ribbon cutting this upcoming spring. There's been a lot of work this past year on the Harbor Loop Trail. So a section was completed along the property of 40 Cross Street. And now that that section is complete, and the section along the Avalon Bay communities, you'll see in this year's budget that I'll present shortly, there's an opportunity to connect those sections of the Harbor Loop Trail across Route 1. And then also this new section of the Harbor Loop Trail connects to the Norwalk River Valley Trail. So there's a lot of momentum in connecting our trail network, which is really exciting, and we hope to build on next year. We also released a final draft of the Norwalk Transportation Master Plan this year, and continue to collect feedback, but it's been a massive undertaking with a lot of community input. And we're really excited to have this document moving forward that's really going to govern and help us determine what the transportation system and investments look like over the next 10 to 20 years. We worked on, over the past year, really finding a consultant and finalizing a contract for Complete Streets for the city in 2023 to adopt legislation and ordinance, and then policy and design guides. And I'll talk a little bit more about that moving forward. We've worked on improving traffic signal technology on West Avenue, adding adaptive traffic signals, which really just respond on a real-time basis to changing traffic demand. When Norwalk is one of the leaders in the adaptive traffic control system throughout the state. We've also worked on finishing a emissions mitigation quality grant, phase 3, which was several intersections throughout the city. We'll talk a little bit more about the intersection by the Green later on, but that was one of the projects included in phase 3. And you may have seen in the paper recently that we're moving on to phase 4 and really starting to update some of these antiquated traffic signals and connect them to our existing system through our fiber optic network, and then just add more technology to make our transportation system much more demand responsive. This past year, we also kicked off the Seaview Avenue Corridor Improvements Project, which I see many faces that were in attendance on this call at the meeting. We'll continue to work on that this year, but really looking forward to how we kind of reshape that multimodal corridor and make it much more friendly for pedestrians and bicyclists. A few more things I just wanted to call attention to. We also looked at, over the course of the year, reducing the speed limit on several streets. So just a couple of examples, moving Washington Street from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour and posting new signage. That also included other roadways that we've done this on, our Camp Street around Tracy School, actually lowering the speed limit and creating a school zone around that campus. And we continue to look at roads on a case-by-case basis. We added bike lanes to Phillips Street this year and actually petitioned the state to reduce that speed limit, and are just waiting to hear back. So we've done that on a number of streets throughout the city. Another big accomplishment of this past year was really looking at completing a sidewalk inventory for the entire city. So we have about 560 total potential miles of sidewalk in the city, and I think where we stand, we built out 189 of those miles. So there's a lot of work to be done. The assessment also included the existing conditions of the sidewalks that we do have. And most importantly, we were really busy over the past year, just really working on providing applications for grant funding. We wrote over $64 million in grant funding this past year. And I think we'll continue to have more good news to share over the course of the year as those grants are started to be awarded. But stay tuned. We're anticipating some good news for Wall Street coming out shortly from the federal government. And that leads into one of the last projects that I wanted to call attention to was we've worked over this past year at really advancing the concept of what the Wall Street corridor or neighborhood looks like. And we'll continue to work on that over the course of this year. So I just wanted to set the stage a little bit about all the different things that our department does. Not only do we cover all the different modes of transportation throughout the city, but we're working on a number of projects in different forms of development, whether it's looking for funding, working on large scale plans for the city, actually doing design of projects, and then overseeing them from construction all the way to inception. So we wear many hats, and I think you'll see that reflected in the budget. But I think without further ado, I'd like to share my screen. And I will share a PDF
Go for it.
of what our budget request looks like for this year. And what you'll see, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So on the left, you'll see the projects are really organized in order of priority, with the following column having a project title. And then the last column is our corresponding request for this fiscal year. But what I'd love to do is just go through the projects one by one and just give you like a really high level summary of what each project entails. And of course, this isn't every project in the city. This is, again, what we think we can get through with this fiscal year. And even if a project isn't reflected in this fiscal year, we do program for out years, and we recognize that there's a number of other important projects that exist within the city that still have to be attended to. But the first project you'll see here is really one
Garrett,
of our most...
before
Yeah.
you get started, just to clarify, the fiscal year 2023-24, that starts July 1st of 2023. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And it goes to June 30th of 24.
So the money that is represented here is money that would be spent during that time frame.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the clarification. Go on.
No, not a problem. So the first project you see here is our roadway design and reconstruction. And this is one of our most important projects. We requested this last year. We've increased the sum this year to a $500,000 request. And what this account really allows us to do is be responsive to some of the goals, visions, and strategies that came out of the POCD, and then also the Transportation Master Plan. So with this account, we look at really promoting multimodal safety and improving efficiency, and really generating projects out of everything that comes from our citizen service inquiries, through our elected officials. Also, this account allows us to respond to any safety incidences on the roadway. So we can't predict where those incidents or crashes are going to occur, but this account allows us to be really responsive with the projects outlined in the master plan when the situation does arise. And this project also allows us to be really responsive to grant applications. So they often come up very quickly, and we have a number of tasks to do, whether it's conducting surveys or creating preliminary plans, cost estimates, to make a competitive grant application. So this is exactly what that account allows us to do. The second account that you'll see here, a request for this year, is traffic signal equipment. So our department is responsible for approximately 86 city-owned signals, a handful of which are older than me. And then I would say most people on this call, we have a number of aging signals, and we're looking to systematically replace them. There's about 10 signals that are antiquated and currently need replacement. So this funding goes to replace those signals. Typically, a signal replacement, what we're seeing today, is $600,000 to $700,000. They're quite expensive. Part of that is due to the price increases in steel, but also the technology to really create a true state-of-the-art system that not only works for today, but is going to work for connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles down the line. So we're trying to be really forward thinking. You'll see our request is a little bit lower this year, $250,000, because we think we've identified a site where we can really leverage the existing configuration of the intersection. This is Route 1 at Camp Street, so that we can limit the infrastructure and still get a new signal in place that's fully functional and that coordinates with all the other signals. So it's a little bit lower this year, but every year we do look to address some of those aging signals. The third project you'll see here is Gregory Boulevard at 5th Street, Marvin Street, Calfpasture Beach Road, intersection improvements. So last year we had $100,000 approved in our budget to kick off this project and to start design. We subsequently or since applied for a LOTSIP grant, which we've received conditional approval, subject to providing some additional information for this project. But what LOTSIP is it's a state program that funds 100% of construction, and the city is required to fund the design, and that's the match for that program. So you'll see we've requested an additional 100,000 this year to really get 100% shovel-ready design to really improve the existing traffic signal, make it function more like a roundabout, which we know is much safer, and then to also do the adjacent intersection to make sure that the experience to and from the beach and those neighborhoods is comfortable for all different modes. If you're familiar with the intersection today, there's a lack of crossings. There's a lot of channelization, which creates high speed. It's along the NRVT, but there's really a lack of bicycle amenities. So that's what this project is looking to do. And we're looking to bring on board some additional staff to really start to run with this project and bring it to the community later on this year. Capital project number 4, you'll see, is new sidewalk construction. And as I mentioned, we're really fortunate now to have a roadmap through that sidewalk inventory that we completed over the past year to really guide these type of investments. But we had traditionally been asking for 200 to 250,000, but really looked as based on the needs that came from the sidewalk inventory and the need for more sidewalks to the city, to really bump that account up to 700,000. So what that really allows us to do is get about a mile of sidewalks in a given corridor or a particular project. So you'll see that number has been increased not only this year, but we're also reflecting that in out years, and think it's truly important for us to capitalize on the work that we've done to date and to really meet the goal of providing sidewalks on every street throughout the city. The next project is traffic system enhancements, and you'll see somewhat nominal fee compared to the others, a request for $60,000. But what the traffic signal enhancement capital account allows our department to do is really look at some of the signals that don't need complete replacement and really retrofit them, keep them in a good state of repair, make sure that all of the nuts and bolts are compatible with the rest of the system. And it includes everything from making sure we have video detection all the way down to ADA accessible push buttons at each location, and really everything in between. This account allows us to make our system more resilient by providing battery powered backup to each of our signals, and then a number of other things. But this is a really important count. While it's much less of a request in value, it's really critical to just maintaining a state of good repair within our system. The sixth project, and this one should be pretty familiar, as we just had our first design kickoff meeting for, which was really just a listening session, is the Seaview Avenue improvements. So we've really identified this corridor as a candidate for a really great and competitive grant application. We think it could potentially be under that LOTSIP capital improvement program for this upcoming fiscal year. So what we've done is we've requested the balance of funding necessary to, again, get shovel-ready plans for this project, for which we think could be a $3 to $4 million project to really transform the corridor, to create some type of dedicated bicycle facility, to improve the pedestrian experience, to maintain the throughput of traffic, but make sure the speeds are acceptable to really that little village district at the end of the street. These are all things that were iterated at the public meeting that we heard, and we look forward to coming back before the community next year to talk about what some of the concepts could be based on the public's input. But we are really looking for that balance of funding necessary to get us to shovel-ready documents, because that is what the COGS and CONDOT are really looking to fund. The seventh capital project is Safe Routes to School. So we've had this project for a number of years. Over the past several years, we've asked for $250,000. And what that really allowed us to do is complete the Highland Sidewalk project, which ultimately amounted to, with 3 years of funding, to an additional mile of sidewalk, crosswalk, and crossing improvements around the high school and Brookside Elementary. But again, we're requesting this, and we'll use our sidewalk inventory to really drive the investments and determine where the best benefit to cost ratio will be throughout the city. So that's something that we'll look at through the winter. But we will continue to have this request moving forward on a yearly basis. Under that, you'll see one really specific project related to schools, and that's for Tracy School improvements. So I think ever since I joined the city, I walked out on Camp Street and was overwhelmed by the congestion and the gridlock around that school, and really how it shut down traffic operations in that neighborhood, but also made some really harrowing and unsafe conditions for pedestrians that are trying to access the school. And really the reality is I don't think we ever anticipated this many people would do pickup and drop off at one of these area schools. So we worked on some concepts for the school and came up with some potential solutions, which this account accommodates. And, we really looked at how we could add value to the school by creating a type of pickup drop off or a queuing loop around the park in the back, but would also be a loop that is potentially dual purpose and that could serve as a track when it's not being used in the morning or afternoon. But this would allow for much better storage of cars, really take the cars off the Camp Street and the surrounding roadways, and really improve traffic flow for all modes around the school. So we're looking to bring some resolution to that project, which has been around for a number of years through this year's capital requests. Project number 9, again, this should be pretty familiar too, is for continuing the Wall Street corridor improvements. So this project we're currently looking on, based on our last public meeting in November, is moving forward with the concept for the neighborhood, but making tweaks based on public input. But over the course of the next year, we'll really work on the design documents for the first phase of this project, which will really be the intersection of Belden Avenue at Wall Street and Mott Street, and also making Grinnell Boulevard two-way. So we'll take a look at this. We'll work on the design plans over the course of the year. We have a $3.5 million grant to get that work done. We also believe that we'll receive confirmation of another $5.5 million for this project very shortly. But you'll see the funding here is additional funding to cover really just non-participating items with grants. So all grants, there are participating and non-participating items. So we anticipate some of the things that we showcased at the public meetings, such as some of the treatments on the festival street, or some of the streetscape elements, or some of the, for example, the arches over the street may not be participating elements. So this would be the design money to make sure those are incorporated as part of the project and moving closer to holistically finishing that corridor. So as I scroll down, number 10 is pavement markings and signage. And this is a project that we don't request funding for every year, but typically every 2 years. And what it entails is everything. So our department's responsible for all the pavement markings that exist on every city street. And this account includes just the maintenance of those existing pavement markings, which we measure and replace on a 3 to 5 year basis, but also new pavement markings. So when we talk about adding new bike lanes or adding road diets or lane diets, or just different types of turn treatments at intersection, all of that funding comes from this account. And this money can also be used to do our crosswalks, artistic crosswalks, and things of that nature. And it also covers all the signage that you see on the city streets, which we're currently working on adopting a new sign style guide to really improve the aesthetics of signage, but also consistency of signage throughout the city. So while we don't ask for this one every year, it is really important. And these are some of the elements that you interface with on a daily basis. So we're looking for another $200,000 this year to keep moving forward with that program. So I think this one, the next one, number 11, came up a little bit earlier, and that's the East Avenue corridor and intersection improvements. So we've heard from the community, and we've seen the data from the Transportation Master Plan, whether it was the citizen input or the crash data, volume data for that corridor. And we definitely think it warrants further investigation. There's been a lot of concern around the green and the 5-legged intersection, and rather complex intersection, and what that'll look like over time. But we really thought it was prudent to really expand the scope of the study to include all of East Avenue. So you'll see requests for $750,000, and this is for a This is for both planning and design. And again, everything we do, we're trying to get shovel-ready documents. But really from Eversley Avenue to the south of the green, all the way north of Route 1 to Cannon Street. And the reason why we did this and chose really the southerly limits was because Eversley Avenue tied well into what we know will be future, ConnDOT is working on future improvements to the exit 16 interchange. So we had to find a good limit line that would tie in to that project. And then we really wanted to go all the way north. So we want to do a comprehensive look at the lane arrangements, the lane configurations, the operations, opportunities for improved multimodal access, better crossings, better connections to the green, and look at traffic calming throughout the entire corridor. So you will see that in this year's budget. And I encourage you, as it came up on the call before, should this really align with the goals and objectives of the Bike Walk Commission, to be strong advocates for this project. It does carry a rather large price tag, but I think it's very important that we look at the corridor holistically and then make sure we get it right. Moving on, number 12 is the Norwalk River Valley Trail. So typically we ask for $50,000 to maintain the trail in a state of good repair. And now that we've had the trail, fortunately, for several years in the city, it is needing some maintenance, some general repairs. The other funding goes to improving amenities along the trail. But this year you'll see a slightly bigger request for funding. And that really is because we want to make sure that we're always in design of the next leg of the trail so we can capitalize on upcoming grants. So with this year's request, we're really looking at taking the mile that we're working on that will be open in the spring, which terminates at New Canaan Avenue, and making sure the next leg extends all the way to the Merritt Parkway. And we think this is important for two reasons. It's not only the next leg of the Merritt Parkway Trail, but also we want to make sure that we look holistically at the trail and where it's going to cross the Merritt Parkway. As you may know, that the state is looking at redesigning the Route 7 and the Merritt Parkway interchange. So we think it's really important now to determine where the terminus of that trail will be and where the best crossing would be, potentially under 15. So that's what this project entails for this year. Number 13 you'll see is streetlights. So I forgot to mention some of these projects, the ones highlighted every year, we have some in yellow, which are new projects. So these are referring to both highway and pedestrian level streetlights. So our department is responsible for maintaining these lights, several lights throughout the city. In previous history, we did not have an account for this, and there were no funds available to replace lights. A lot of them are aging or in a state of disrepair. So this is to replace them, but also look at locations that could benefit from new pedestrian or highway lights. We know that lighting is significant when it comes to safety and making sure, for example, pedestrian crosswalks are well lit or streetscape feels safe. So that's what this account allows us to do. And this is the first year we're asking for this, but it is truly important. We've not had this account before. Moving on, request number 14 is traffic data. So this is a really interesting request. So we're looking at obtaining data from a vendor that would show us not only the volumes of traffic on every street throughout the city, but also where people are going, the origin and destinations of people. So we could, for example, determine and validate where there is cut-through traffic city, which we previously can't do, but we're looking for vendors that can basically ping cars, a percentage of the cars on the roadway, and then use that data and extrapolate that data to determine what the average daily traffic on the roadway, what the percentage of heavy vehicles. You can do really unique things as even seeing where there's hard braking on the road or aggressive acceleration. So you can use this as surrogate measures for potential locations that are high risk for crashes. So this is really state-of-the-art data, which is has actually come down in price, and we feel it's affordable, but it's going to help us develop a really state-of-the-art crash database, which our data analyst is working on. The other thing in this request for this capital account is really an asset management system for all the signs in the city. So today, we don't have a true asset management system for where all our street signs are, whether our regulatory warning, guide signs, wayfinding signs, parking signs, you name it. And if it's not measured, we know it's not managed. So What we really want to do is look for a consultant to drive the street, to take all this data in so we can start to look at where our signs are. And as I mentioned before, we designed basically a curbside sign style guide to really help improve the aesthetics of the city. To make sure we don't have things like sign clutter, but also to make sure that we're being really consistent in our messaging and everything is really clear and concise. And we've started to do this on Wall Street. You'll see some new parking signage that we feel is much clearer to the end user and much more intuitive. And overall, we think this just really results in a better user experience throughout the city. Almost getting to the end, but number 15 is protected crosswalks. So this is a really important account. It allows us to look at locations that would benefit from the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So the pedestrian warning lights where you push the button and you have the wig-wag flashers go on. And this also allows us to do raised crosswalks. So we're really fortunate to work with our health department and obtain a grant through the Department of Public Health for a protected crosswalk on Union Street, right by Union Park, which actually crosses the NRVT. So really creating an entire level crossing through the trail, and then also slowing down drivers at a crossing is going to be a really great project. So that's what that is going to go to this fiscal year. But we would look for similar type of projects and opportunities moving forward, and also consult our sidewalk inventory. So the second to last request, and then I'll let you guys ask questions, is the pedestrian crosswalk at 40 Cross Street. So I think earlier I talked a little bit about the Harbor Loop Trail. There's a lot of momentum behind it. To the north of Route 1, we have the 40 Cross Street Trail that's just been opened, and to the south, there's been a section of the Harbor Loop Trail that was developed with the Avalon, but now we have to cross Route 1. So if you're familiar with that section of Route 1, obviously the traffic volumes are high. The speeds are high and it's very busy. So what we want to do with this project is really look at the design of some type of pedestrian hybrid beacon to make it much more comfortable, something to control traffic so that users of the trail can cross safely. The last project is one that's been in design for several years, and that's the Hunt Street sidewalks. So we've had previous money in our budget to study Hunt and Wych Street, and this is just really the balance of the funding necessary to do what we estimate the construction would cost on Hunt Street. This was specifically broken out as a separate project based on previous projects and the previous capital account. But really just looking to finish a project which has been in existence for several years, and we are moving forward over the next year with the conceptual design and actual design documents. So I know it's a lot to take in. I think it totals to about $5 million. We think all the projects are really important and recognize that while they might not all be funded, we want to make sure that the community and our council and our boards and commissions understand what truly our needs are and our challenges and what we think we can do this year. So I guess without further ado, I'd love to answer any questions that the commission or any of the participants on the call may have, but I appreciate everyone's time to go over the budget. It's a unique opportunity, and I think this is something that we'd like to do at the beginning of every year. And again, we wanted to present it really, really early to the group so that you can take a little time to let it sink in and then advocate for those things that really truly align with your interests.
Thank you very much, Garrett. I appreciate the time you took to go through each one of those in detail. I tried to take good notes, and I've written down several questions, but I will let others go first. Actually, I'm going to sneak one in there because I think that a lot of people are wondering the same thing. How much of these do you expect to get funded, and which ones do you think will be the hardest to win versus the easiest to win?
Yeah, so I can simply say that last year I think we had a request at around 3 million, and we had about 2 million funded. So this year we really increased our requests, but with hope that some more of these projects can be funded since they are really important. And I think we've significantly grown our staff over this year to start to tackle some of these challenges. But you'll see a lot of the projects are tied to different public-private partnerships, state and grant funding. You know, we've written $64 million of grants, and you know, we think we'll hear very shortly about another $5.5 million for Wall Street, bringing the total for Wall Street to about 9 million. So we're making a lot of progress, but want to make sure that we can be responsive to the grantees or the grantors and deliver these projects. And other projects like Seaview Avenue, there's a huge opportunity to get lots of funding should we meet some conditional requirements for the grant that we submitted. So those are just examples, but I think that's why you've seen such an increase in the requests, is that we've written a lot of grants, and you know, a lot of the times it's that match funding that they look for you to provide, and that's reflected in this year's budget.
Yeah, makes total sense. Thanks. Okay, I'll pass it over to other people. Probably starting with commissioners. If any commissioners have a question, go for it. And then I noticed Ben's hand was up, so after that, I'll pass it up to people like Ben. Judd, go ahead. Judd, you're muted, but we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, thanks, Garrett. That was a great overview of everything. You mentioned the sign style guide. Is that a public document?
Yeah, I think we're happy to share it. We've been working on it over the last year, so you know, maybe at a later meeting that can be an agenda item, and we can just kind of go through what the new signage is, the rationale behind doing a new, like an actual curbside style guide for the city, and really some of the issues it looks to fix, and how it improves the aesthetics of our streets.
Could we do that next month, do you think?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to present it at any time the commission would like to have us there. Yeah.
Yeah, Judd, I've taken a note to try and include it in February if there's time.
Okay, that would be great. And then my next question is, the grants, who is actually paying these grants? Is it all the state, federal? Is it individual organizations, or?
So it really is a mix. So for example, with all the approved funding that was recently approved through the federal government, so one type, we applied for a $26 million grant for Safe Streets for All. So you might have heard of that. It was a major program really geared towards municipalities to address safety issues on their roadways. So that's an example of a grant that the city applied for $26 million. It would be, if it's approved, it would be 80% federal, and then it would be a 20% match. But fortunately, the grant that we did was, I think Greg may have mentioned in the past, it was for Main Street. And the match for that would be some of our Wall Street funding that we've gotten for the state. So we can get really creative in how we do the match funding and how we provide the match funding. But that was actually a grant that was submitted that we worked through our regional council of governments, so WestCog, and they submitted the application, but we were heavily involved in advocating for Norwalk and looking for a project on Main Street. And we really saw that made the most sense, given WestCog had done a safety study, and that was one of the corridors that really met all the metrics that the government was looking for, and it also tied into what we were doing in the Wall Street neighborhood. That's one example, but there's also a lot of state funding. So that LOTSIP program, I think if you recall, a couple months back, we provided an overview for some different projects throughout the city. I think one was around Norwalk Community College with the Richards Ave, West Cedar Street, looking at that aging signal, replacing it, and then doing some streetscape around the campus to really unify the fabric of the East and the West campuses. And then also we submitted the grant for converting the traffic circle at Gregory Boulevard and Marvin Street to make it more like a functional roundabout and improving the intersection to the east. So those are examples of different state funding. And then we look at every opportunity. I mentioned the health department grant. We partner with other organizations. We partnered with on grants with the redevelopment agency for several federal dollars. So there's a lot of different funding sources out there, and we're just making sure that we capitalize on all of them. I think the most important thing that we did over the past year was complete the Transportation Master Plan, which really gives us the data to support and develop these projects and make competitive applications.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Garrett. and thanks, Judd, for the questions. I'm going to go now to Ben. Ben had his hand up earlier, and then I'll go to Christine, and then I'll go to Audrey.
I was just gonna ask, Tanner already asked what the original, or I guess what the previous year's ask had been. So going from 3 to 5, it's a pretty big jump. I love to see the ambition.
Yeah, I do think it's a pretty big jump. I think one of the reasons I wanted to go over what we've accomplished this year, because I think we truly have accomplished a lot, and we have a lot of momentum, and we have a lot of projects in the work, and I think the most important thing is to make sure we support those projects that have potential match funding.
Definitely, yeah. Appreciated your good overview of all this stuff.
So next is Christine. Go ahead, Christine.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Garrett. That was really great. And just two things. It sounds like you mentioned practically every corner of Norwalk, but I'm going to bring something up that wasn't mentioned, and I'm just curious. So they're renovating Norwalk High School. I guess it's going to be a 2 to 3 year project, and I'm just curious because I live over here and I see the sidewalks in great need. If that's going to be incorporated into that whole construction and the intersection and all that. So it's not like additional money for the city, but it's part of that whole project. That is one question. My second question is, so I guess Greg will be following up with us when we do get funding for some of these, so we can add this to our application for the Norwalk, for the Bike League of America that we're hoping to get an application in for. Those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Yeah, let me start with the high school. So for one of the responsibilities of our department is we're also creating a year-end report, which I think it could be a potential agenda item for future months, and I'd be happy to present on that. But they'll cover a lot more in depth of all the roles and responsibilities our department has. So one of our roles and responsibilities is a site plan review. So for any development, including the Norwalk High School, our department reviews it, and we're currently in the process of looking at that. We understand there's a lot of issues, and while there's not a specific item in this year's budget for that project, we're in the process right now of determining really what the needs are going to be for the high school, and how there's a lot of different things in flux with the new design of the high school. So how we create an environment that is truly multimodal, pedestrian, bicyclist friendly. I think the biggest thing that we know about all our schools is they're major traffic generators. That we have to look at carefully at how parents pick up and drop off. It generates a tremendous volume of traffic and demand on the roadways around schools. But I think we have a really unique opportunity here. It's not often you have a chance to build a new school. So we have a unique opportunity to get that right. But I can tell you that we're looking at it right now and determining, what those needs are, whether it's traffic signal improvement related, whether it's crossing related, whether it's safety, whether it's just accommodating pickup and drop off of vehicles without impacting the adjacent roads. Those are all the things that we're looking at right now. And I think you had a second question, and I'll let Greg speak to that, but I believe the answer is yes. We've been working closely with him on all our projects, and he's looking at that application. And Greg, maybe you can comment a little bit on the status of that application as well.
Yeah, so we need to kind of follow up, because I know we were kind of splitting it in half a little bit, with the commission kind of handling some of the front end documents, and then from there, we would take over the actual submittal of the application, but also the data and just the city quantity aspect of the application as well. So I believe it's due at the end of February, which is going to be here before we know it. So we'll have to look at the timeline here to see where we're at, because obviously on top of what we have within the city, we need to make sure we can handle handle the application. So we may have to have some coordination between us and you guys, of course, to make sure we get the application in on time, and if it's still amenable to that timeline.
So Greg, just to confirm, you're saying that you need us to drive filling out the application, correct? And
no,
then
not so much
after
drive the application, but fill out there. It's as you all said, and we had this discussion months ago, was it's a pretty long application process.
Yes,
So.
yes, we did have
what
one
I
meeting where we
have-
got together and read through the entire thing, and so the people
Yes.
who are there understand that it's quite long.
Yeah, so, we were kind of gonna split it a little bit so that when, the Bike Walk Commission was, kind of answering a lot of the front end portion on education, and any of the outreach kind of stuff, a portion of the application, and then hand over to the city, because, it's a lot for us, for one person to just drop everything and just work on the application right now.
Sure.
For everything. So obviously, we would handle a lot of the data and detail-oriented items that, the commission wouldn't have knowledge of. And the commission would handle the front end portion.
Okay, yeah,
a
I'm
lot
sorry.
of the
I don't-
general details.
Yeah.
Because that's what we had
Thanks,
talked
Greg.
about, I believe, late summer. We had talked about that.
Yeah, not-
Yes,
and I don't-
we've discussed this several times. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack this conversation so we can get back to it, but I think offline, maybe Tanner, we can go back to the application. And just the fact that we're on the map here with opening up the portal for an application, that's just a start right there. So I don't want anybody to overly
Absolutely.
stress about this.
Hmm.
So Greg, you guys have enough on your plate, so please, that comment was not meant to
Yeah.
put pressure on anybody.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's, they usually have 2 openings every year, so, in another 6 months, we could also apply again. So if we have to delay it 6 months, then, come up with a more realistic schedule, then that's fine. But we can discuss offline as well.
So the point though that I'm trying to make is that it's still very reasonable to make the February deadline if we can get together and make progress on this. We had one meeting where we got together and started filling it out. But we need some more, I think, whatever working group is going to work on filling that out, I think we need to keep that momentum going. And I would love if somebody else on the commission, maybe you, Christine, could drive that, putting together meetings, even if it's just a couple of people, so that we can keep that momentum going of filling that thing out. And that way also the actual work of filling it out doesn't fall on one person. But I think that that somebody needs to spearhead the organizing of it.
Okay, I'll talk after.
Okay.
With you, Tanner.
Okay, after Christine was Audrey. Go ahead, Audrey.
Well, I see Colin's hand is raised and he's a member of the commission, so maybe Colin would like to go next.
Well, I'm going to get to everybody, so go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Garrett and the team for everything you've been doing, focusing on East Avenue and then around the Norwalk Green, around Park Street too. We've been running some community events on the Norwalk Green, as you know, where we're gathering a lot of people there, and crossing Park Street and East Avenue is pretty dangerous for a lot of people. So I'm glad that's being attended to. I just wanted to know whether there's anything in the mix of all these projects and grants, et cetera, that where there's a collaboration or communication or conversation with law enforcement on traffic control. And also, where does public transportation fit into? I mean, is this part of the conversation? I think of Vision Zero. I know we're not using the Vision Zero platform per se, but the model of the 3 E's, the engineering, education, and enforcement are their 3 things, and putting pedestrians and bicyclists first, cars second, all that. So my question is, where does law enforcement fit into this to control traffic? And also, is there public education in some way? Is education to the public part of that? Is the DMV, and where are the conversations, if any, on public transit, enforcement, and education?
Yeah,
Garrett,
no,
can I take a quick stab at that first, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
The TMP related stuff, obviously, I'll let you answer. Audrey, just to address the public education part of that, in the conversations that I've been having with people like Jim and Garrett, I think that they see the Bike Walk Commission as being able to fill a large role in the education part of that. So to answer that part of your question, as far as the law enforcement part, I would love to hear what Garrett has to say, but I do want to point out that the presentation that Garrett's made has just been about the TMP's budget, and obviously none of TMP's budget goes to the police department. Same with the transit district, although that might not make a lot of sense because transit is obviously transportation and their department is transportation, mobility, and parking. They are 2 separate entities. Perhaps that's something that could be reformed in the far future, but currently that's the way that it's set up under state law. I would love to see collaboration. I think in the past there's been collaboration between TMP and the transit district, but I haven't heard a lot of details about it recently. So maybe that's another thing that Garrett could address. Go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to address that. And I think you hit the nail on the head about education. We look to work together, but we think there's major opportunities to do things like, for example, like a bike rodeo, where maybe we kind of take over a track with the help of the Bike Walk Commission and teach children the rules of the road, how to operate a bike safely, and maybe provide bike helmets. That's just one example. I think also the health department has some Norwalker maps, and just opening up, some education around, some of the routes that have been established. And also we could look at opportunities to share information. Like, for example, there's a lot of new technology on the roadways. For example, when I got my driver's license, there wasn't RRFBs or the flashing beacons and the push buttons. So providing some more information and outreach to what those are is just another example. But I think you asked about transit. Which we do have a great relationship with the Norwalk Transit District, and we engage them. So I think part of the process that we committed to is really having an open process. So for example, like the Wall Street corridor improvements, where we have these public outreach meetings, and the Norwalk Transit District participates. We look to include transit with every project, and we're having, as we develop the concept plans and progress the concept plans, we're having further conversations with Norwalk Transit about how we finalize and improve the operations of the Pulse Point, how we make it more intuitive, how we provide transit on both sides of the street. And that's an ongoing conversation that we're having. But I think with all our projects, another example, community connectivity, where we've installed some bike lanes, but we also look at a bus only lane. And as part of that project, there'll be, and I think Greg's speaking to it a little bit, but we'll be providing, for example, the city's first dedicated bus stop with red paint. So we do have that relationship, and we work on a project by project basis. But I think we've also committed to be transparent and open with all our projects, and having a large public outreach component to all the projects. And I think you also mentioned, in addition to public transit enforcement, and again, we have a great relationship with the police department. So whenever we do improvements, such as the do not block the box on East Avenue, or add new speed limit signs, we coordinate with the police to make sure they're aware of the project, and they could provide the proper enforcement. We also have putting up speed feedback signs on a number of communities and streets throughout the city, where we collect the actual data of speeds, and then we can, and the police department has access to it, so they can see, for example, if there is a period of time during the day, often it's the commuter peak hour, where there's a higher number of people that are driving a significant speed over the speed limit, they can actually use those hours and that information to go out there and do targeted enforcement. So that's an example of the relationship we have with the police department. But as Tanner mentioned, our budgets are separate.
Thanks, Garrett, and thanks, Audrey, for the questions. Go ahead, Colin.
Thank you. Thanks, Garrett. Great presentation. I had a couple items. First one, I'll just dovetail on Judd's comment about the sign inventory and manual. You mentioned sign clutter. I know that's been a concern in the past with some of the bike lane or route implementation signs. Can you just give a quick summary of how you plan on addressing sign clutter and minimizing signage in areas where it might be extraneous? I guess that's the first question.
Yeah. Is there a specific example with the bike lane signage?
What's the name of the street? It was, Judd, you probably remember Pine Hill. Is that what that's called?
Oh, yes, on
off of Beach Road. It parallels Beach Road, and
well, there was a homeowner there who got very upset when we put a
well, we didn't put it there, the city did.
Well, Public Works, and
kind of us.
yes, and the result of that was, I believe, that we are not putting bike route signs or bike lane signs on private property, in front of private property.
But also, I think, specifically there becomes the point, even in urban downtowns, where you need to convey a lot of information on a sign, where, it becomes counterproductive because there's
Yeah.
too much for anybody to focus on, and it's not benefiting anybody. So you mentioned it. You're obviously thinking about addressing it, but what do you think is too much? And maybe that's just to a future conversation about you're working on it and you plan to address it. But I guess I just want to highlight that as a concern, especially in our urban areas where sidewalk space is precious, and some of the more narrow passages.
Absolutely.
Like in South Main, there are portions where the sidewalks are very narrow, and just cluttering it up with signs is difficult for pedestrians. And
Mhm.
in other areas walking around town in some of the schools, there are post-mounted signs that are very low and probably don't meet ADA requirements, and they're head hazards for people that are tall like myself and people that are shorter than myself.
Yeah, I think to your point, Colin, part of this exercise about coming up with this sign style guide is to exactly what you said, to come up with the required mounting height for signs, so you're not walking down the street and walking into a sign. I think you mentioned there being just too many signs. So for example, how many signs that we do put on a channel or a pole, and there's circumstances where a gust of wind could take down the whole thing because it's like a sale and there's 4 signs or so. You mentioned the downtown, and we have very limited right of way. We have limited sidewalks. I think a lot of what best practices are, we're going to try to use existing infrastructure where possible. So downtown, we have many light poles and pedestrian level lighting. So why aren't we using those instead of putting another channel in the sidewalk, taking up space, restricting the sidewalk, or taking up what could be on street dining? Those are just some examples that we're looking at. But also when I walk downtown, I just see on many instances a number of signs that say the same thing, but in a slightly different text. So just cleaning that up, and oftentimes you can remove several of the signs on the street. But I just think it's how we looked at presenting our information in the past. And there's a huge opportunity to make the streets cleaner.
Okay, cool. A couple other ones. The traffic signal at Route 1 in Camp, I think that was project number 2. I just know that that's a congested intersection, since that is my neighborhood. But also the following intersection, and that's also Route 1. So you said that you maintained about 80 signals, I guess, as TMP.
Yeah.
That being a state road, how does that dovetail into the state's equipment and their traffic volumes and moving things through those intersections where you may not have control over the intersections? Or will this project allow you to dovetail in with the state system or work in concert with it?
No, that's a really great question. So that signal at Camp and Route 1 is part of a coordinated system. And the reason we chose to do that one this year is because we actually got a congestion mitigation and air quality improvement grant to do the signal to the east and the signal to the immediate west. So that's moving forward in a design phase right now. But we wanted to make sure that we were moving in lockstep with the grant, which improves signals on state roads, and we were getting the signal in the middle because that's of critical importance to make the entire corridor function.
Okay, cool. So it's to the upstream and downstream. You're looking at Route 1 in Main Ave, and then also at
yes, yep,
Cannon Street and Park Street.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Cool. So then that brings me to the number 8, which was Tracy School improvements. You mentioned the track. Are you looking at any offsite improvements in the neighborhood? As I know, Adams is relatively congested as well. There's definitely a difficulty with the buses making the turn off at Camp onto Adams, and down Eclipse is just hazardous. So I'm just wondering if you were looking offsite or if it was just on-site improvements that you were looking at.
Yeah, so I think over the past year, we've done the school zone, we've done some flashers, we've done some speed feedback signs, we did some pavement markings, some low-cost improvements. This project is specifically for the Tracy School campus. Okay. I think part of this is to look at this as a first step in the mitigation, and then I know there's several areas that are deficient, and that's something that we could look at under some of the Safe Routes to School funding as we look to progress that as well. But it's currently not part of the Tracy School project, but we recognize that there's other existing issues out there. We did try to improve some of the corner clearances, do some no parking signage, but part of doing these improvements, it should start to mitigate where, we have a lot of corners where people are just parking on, within 25 feet. That makes it very difficult for vehicles to make those turns today. But if we could improve circulation and get some of those vehicles in the queue, those projects or those might mitigate themselves.
True. So I got two more. I've got the protected crosswalks you mentioned, specifically Union in the RRFBs. My big question there was I drove by it the other day and it looks like you've gotten, I don't know if that was you guys, it probably was, the on-street parking has been installed on Union Park as it heads up the hill there and also around the corner. So I think that's using street design to tackle a lot of the issues that the RRFBs help with. But I do see buses go through, and that goes to Christine or Audrey's comment about the working with the transit district. I've always thought that that's a difficult term for the buses to negotiate. And now with the on-street parking, it's going to be a little bit, it's definitely going to slow them down. It might even bring them to a stop. But it seems like that's going to be challenging. And I just want that you work through that with them or reroute the buses or something like that. But the other thing with the RRFBs is I would just, as a caution, I would caution that you not use those in lieu of good street design practices, right? So, I know you guys are doing fantastic work throughout the city, but, just putting up the RRFB and calling it a day is not the solution. It's like, and also conversely, it's not always necessary if you're doing good design practices, right? So it's like, just look to seek that balance for all of us. We're all trying to do that. And obviously you're trying to maximize your budget, and we'd like you to be able to do as much as possible when you can. So just, be wary of that and the challenges. And we all want to be safe, but we all want you to be able to do as much as possible as well. And then the last question I had to do with the East Avenue improvements and what you're aware of that ConnDOT's considering for the exit interchange improvements.
Yeah, so and to just jump back to the protected crosswalk. So I think, part of the way we designed that capital account is I think we agree just putting RFB is not necessarily going to make the intersection safer. And a lot of times it comes down to geometric improvements that actually change drivers' behavior and make the road feel differently. So, that account gives us the flexibility, whether it's a raised crosswalk, or I think oftentimes curb extensions are the answer. And I think that's something that we're looking to move forward with in a lot of different locations throughout the city. But I do think that account's intended to be not just one solution, but a combination of solutions. But I note your points about looking for context-sensitive solutions throughout the city. And then I think to your the East Avenue, the question that you had, so it was about ConnDOT's project. So really they're looking from Eversley south all the way down just south of Olmsted to about Myrtle. They're studying that portion of the roadway. They're currently in the process. I can't speak for them, but coming up with different concepts and alternatives for that intersection to improve operations. One I think that's on the table is a diverging diamond interchange there. But we still have not seen a fully vetted concept yet, but are eager to see that. So we thought it would be prudent that we start our study at basically the limits of their project, not to overlap, and we'll have close communication with them. And I think as this is approved, we'll make sure that the plans to the south align with whatever we're going to do for the corridor. That's an important concept.
Are you in, it might be too early for this as it might not vet out, but are you and Jim in favor of the diverging diamond?
I don't think we've seen any analyses to date or any concepts to really critique or comment on. So until that and until we see the data, we really can't say.
Okay. Thanks.
No, thank you.
I want to underscore really quick one of Colin's points, and that is about the impact of good street design versus RFBs on crosswalks. I just recently, this last week, I came across some research that was done in 2014 about yield rates at crosswalks as a function of vehicle speed on a street. And the study was done in Boston. I've got it pulled up here and I can share it with anybody who's interested. But they found that the yield rate on a 20-mile-per-hour street was around 75%. So 3 out of 4 cars would yield to a pedestrian waiting at a crosswalk, but at a street where the cars were traveling 85th percentile, 37 miles per hour, the yield rate dropped from 75 down to 17. So it's a massive difference. So just I want to point out that the data, or at least the published research that exists here, does underscore Colin's point tremendously. We've got a couple more hands still up. I do want to acknowledge that, sorry, I've been keeping a little list here. Anthony, I don't know if you're still with us, but yes, Anthony's got his hand up, as well as Jeremy. I'll let Jeremy go first and then Anthony, and then I'll round out with the questions that I wrote down.
Okay,
ahead, Jeremy.
yes, yep, hello. So I have a lot to say, but I guess I really want to focus on two things. So I see that a lot of money is allocated towards like road improvements, like traffic lights. But what I really want to know is what is being done for bus stops, because the few bus stops that I see, and there aren't a whole lot of them, they're disgusting. Like there's just trash piled around everywhere. There's people, there's nowhere to sit. People just kind of pile up on this narrow sidewalk, or they're sitting on the grass. And I can't help but feel that if the presentation of even just the presentation of public transportation was improved, if we could increase ridership, because like I would be okay with riding the bus, like if there were any stops near me to begin with, and I knew that waiting for the bus wouldn't be like standing inside of a trash can, right? And I feel like I really feel like resources need to be allocated to like make a bus stop feel like a bus stop, like you know, like benches, like a little, not like a box, but like I'm not sure of the term, but like a little seating area basically with like a roof.
A shelter, perhaps.
A shelter, yeah, shelter. A shelter is a good word for it. What's the word for the like an inlet for a bus to pull into, instead of having to stop in the middle of the street and blocking all the traffic around it. If we could just like pull in to a little area, and then I feel like that would also help improve the perception of buses, that they're not just a nuisance. But yeah, just a small thing I feel like is being overlooked. And then the second thing was, do you believe that relying on police enforcement is the best way to control driver behavior? Because I like you mentioned having these monitors that record traffic speed and like the peak speeds of the day, which cops can go and monitor these places, when I feel like just having better road design would basically just have drivers police themselves, because Norwalk has a lot of very straight, very wide roads. And I don't think just reducing the traffic speed is enough, because if you make these places too comfortable for drivers, they're going to drive to the speed that they're comfortable at. And it's like, just for an example, the road in front of All Saints Catholic School, they just widened that. And like, it's like this perfectly straight, like 3-mile long road. And even though it's a school, when I go through that area, I don't feel like I should be driving slower than I do, because it's so straight and wide, right? And that issue extends to a lot of different areas in Norwalk. So what I guess my question for you is, do you have any plans to design these roads where police just aren't needed at all, basically?
Yeah, I think that, so I can start there. I think it's a great question. So I think what really is exciting about this year is, I think I mentioned it earlier, but we are in the process right now of finalizing a contract to bring FHI, one of the best consultants for complete streets in the state, forward to help the city adopt an ordinance, create a policy, a design implementation guide. But I think this is exactly what you're speaking to, is what our streets look like, how they function, and how we move forward and design them for the speeds that we want, instead of having to rely on something like enforcement when people don't behave the way we want them to do. So that's a process that's going to be taking place, throughout the entire year. We'll have a massive public involvement component. Now that the contract is nearly signed, the first task for FHI to do will be to really look at all our existing zoning regulations, our design guides, our roadway standards, our specifications, and really start to understand, what we're seeing on the streets and how we got there, so that we can look at redesign them. But that's a process that'll take place throughout the whole year. But I think it's a massive opportunity. We've done things like work on changing some of the standards to input 10-foot travel lanes, but I think we really need a holistic approach that says, for this type of street, really should be looking at this type of cross section with this type of width, these type of travel lanes, these type of roadside amenities, so that's not an open strip or a tangent or a straightaway. So I think to your point, I think that's exactly what we want to do over the next year, is really look at how we design our streets. And I think as we do these projects, we're not waiting. So for example, if you're at the Wall Street Corridor Improvement meeting, we're not waiting to use the Complete Streets principles and best practices. We're using them right now in all our ongoing designs. But I think engineering is a huge component of it. The geometry, the design of the streets is a huge component. I think at the end of the day, it really does take education, enforcement, engineering, and then emergency response, really, to make our streets safer. But I encourage you to be part of that process. And then just going back to your comment about public transit. So we don't control the bus stops. That's something that's under the purview of the Norwalk Transit District. So I would really encourage you to attend one of their board meetings and share your experiences, because I do think there's a direct link between ridership and the amenities that we provide, and really how do we get that user experience that's comfortable to drive people into the system. But we do, as like I mentioned with the community connectivity grant, we look at the bus stops with every project. Greg worked really closely with Norwalk Transit to suggest a better location for a bus stop, but also to get that dedicated bus lane for a bus to pull over. And he's worked on getting FHW approval to paint it red. It'll be the first location in the city. It's on Fort Point Street, just north of Seaview Avenue. But we do have those conversations, but unfortunately we're not responsible for the actual amenities at the bus stop. But I truly encourage you to reach out to Norwalk Transit District.
How would I reach out to them?
Jeremy, I can
What's
take
the
that
best
for
way?
you.
Oh yeah.
So Ben and I actually attended their last board meeting in December and learned that they are starting what do they call it? A passenger advisory committee. And they've held one meeting that was admittedly poorly noticed, or at least I didn't know about it, and neither Ben nor I. And we've been trying to learn more about the transit district now for several months. But we have connected now with what's his title? Data analyst and planner, Besim Krasnicki, over at the transit district, and he's the one who's going to be running these meetings. So we'll make sure not only that Ben and I attend, but also that you know about it, and that everybody who is on the mailing list of the Bike Walk Commission also follows us on social will know about it as well. Emily, if you can add that to I'll send you the details once you have it, but make note that we should include that in our media in the near future. Does that help, Jeremy?
Yep. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Also on the subject of bus stops, Ben's been doing some excellent work just cataloging all the bus stops. He got a data set that's a few years old that the transit district shared with us, and Ben took that and ran with it and has been cataloging bus stops, figuring out where they are, where they aren't. And we met with Kimberly, the CEO, last month, and she's excited to take the work that we've done and integrate it into their systems, maybe fix some of the data that they have internally. And hopefully that will turn into a conversation about actually improving the bus stops. That's our goal. So without further ado, let's move on to Anthony. Thanks for waiting so long, Anthony. Delene, you might have to promote Anthony.
He should be unmuted.
Yeah, Anthony, you go try speaking, or maybe he's been waiting so long that he forgot that he had his hand up. Okay, we'll try again in a few minutes. I'm going to run through the questions that I wrote down, and we'll come back to Anthony. So, Garrett, feel free to answer these succinctly, just so that we can try and end on time. Can you give an example of a project that's been in that first category before, roadway design and reconstruction, especially one maybe that pertains to walking and biking?
Yeah, so I think, it could really be anything.
Hello?
So,
Anthony,
I'm
sorry.
This is Anthony. I'm in the car, so I had to pull over so I could figure out how to join the conversation here. So I'm sorry
Gotcha.
to interrupt.
No problem. Given that you've just pulled over, I think I will put my questions on the back burner and let you go ahead, if that's all right, Garrett.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Thanks very much, and I hope not to take too much time. First, a quick introduction. My name is Anthony Pavia. I am one of the co-founders of the City Hall Neighborhood Association. Recently stood up end of summer, early fall. Neighborhood bounds roughly from 95 all the way down East Avenue to roughly Morgan Avenue, and from the Norwalk River all the way up to Strawberry Hill. In essence, our association is a group of concerned citizen taxpayers who want to do whatever we can to work cooperatively with the city and its different departments and commissions to make our neighborhood even better and safer. Really excited to jump on the meeting earlier and hear about the East Avenue study being inserted into the capital budget. Since our association has been founded and funded, we have been working cooperatively with the Norwalk Green Association. And so this is one of the areas where our collaboration, I think, has been really important. Our group of citizens are, residents with families, young children. I personally reside on Buckingham Place, but I have amongst the 100 or so responses that we garnered to support the putting forward of the East Avenue study. People reside on Lockwood Lane, on Melbourne, down right off of Hendricks Avenue there. So, really from all over this East Avenue corridor, we have concerned citizens who, want to be able to walk around the neighborhood, access houses of worship on East Avenue, simply try and cross East Avenue safely. Myself, I have a 9-week-old daughter, and walking her down the stroller down East Avenue is an exercise in adrenaline. Just recently, yesterday, just simply walking down East Avenue past Norwalk Inn, there's a telephone pole in the middle of the sidewalk, and stroller is legit less than 6 inches away from traffic. And so, really excited to hear that this commission is looking to support safety in our neighborhood. I think, speaking as one of the founders of our association, I'm definitely looking forward to working and supporting your guys' work, and would very much like to maybe offline connect with someone to see how we could mobilize our members, our residents to support the work you guys are doing. And so, I think that was pretty much, I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to consider it. I know that the Norwalk Green Association has been very vocal and doing all sorts of advocacy for this. So happy to try and work with you guys and support the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you, and I would
Thank-
encourage you to share this with your council members and attend the public hearings and speak to our budget and items like this, so that your voice can be heard.
Thank you very much.
Anthony, I'd love to connect offline. Do you have my email address? I think I have yours. I'll send you an email.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks again for your time, Anthony. Thanks for pulling over. Let me make note of that really quick so I don't forget to do it, and then I will return to my questions. Okay. So, yes, Garrett, can you maybe from last year or for the current fiscal year's budget, can you give an example of something that came out of the roadway design and reconstruction bucket?
Yeah, I'll try to be short because I know you guys are running low on time. But so for example, for the LOTSIP grant that we did for Norwalk Community College and for West Cedar at Richards Avenue, there's a number of things that go into doing that grant, and some things we just can't do in-house, like getting one of the conditional approvals for that proposal was to have survey data of the entire area. So that's something that we're using out of last year's budget to make that application move forward and progress to conduct.
Gotcha. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Second question, you mentioned there's 100,000 for Seaview Ave improvements. Would that, so roughly, I understand at a high level that every project like this has kind of a design phase, or sorry, a study phase, a design phase, and then a construction phase. Which one of those rough buckets would that go into?
So that would be design monies. So that we get
design money,
100% shovel-ready plans, and hopefully we can get 100% construction funding within the next grant cycle.
The idea is that the 100,000 would pay entirely for the design, or that would be matching funds so that you could get a grant to pay for the rest, or would the grant pay for the construction?
Yeah, so I think we would like to get a grant that pays for the construction, but
Gotcha.
we have some funding right now for design, but it's not enough to get us to that 100% level, which that's really where people want to fund your project, because you have plan in hand and they know you're ready to go and you're committed. And there's the public support behind it. So that's to get that plan to a final stage.
So the 100,000 would bring us up to paying so that the city can cover the entirety of the design phase. And then the idea would be that given that the design is done, that constitutes a shovel-ready project, and then you can apply for a grant to cover all the construction.
Exactly. That would be our hope. Yeah, and I think there's some state funding sources that would do just that.
Gotcha. Ben, do you have a different question or a related question?
It's a different question. It's super quick
Okay.
for when we get a chance.
Yes, I'll come once I get through my questions. I'll come back to you. On the safe routes to school, you mentioned that, and then I think there's a different. The next section was about Tracy School, which is a similar issue. Do you have any explicit goals around increasing the share of students that get to school without a car? Whether that's walking and biking or by taking a school bus, or is your goal more to just accommodate students to more safely get to school in whatever way they're already choosing to?
No, I think it's the latter. I think the only way, like as I mentioned before, we have the most congestion around our schools. The only way that we can reduce that congestion is provide additional opportunities or encourage people to use other modes. So I think we're really looking at how we can support to get first-time walkers, first-time bikers to and from our schools safely.
So do you believe that the concept that you have for Tracy School, for example, do you think that will accomplish that goal? That it will actually shift people from getting driven to school to some other form?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it starts to remove some of the barriers. So really, what are those barriers? It's just the gridlock and the congestion on Camp Street, and that extends into those neighborhood streets that really makes it uncomfortable for people to walk or send their children, or it completely prohibits people from biking to that school. So I think that's part of the solution. And then I think there's additional study that needs to be done in the area, but I think that's the first part of the solution, is finding a space for the cars.
Tanner?
Gotcha. Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, sorry. Just to jump in really quick, being that I have a school-age kid and we're coming up on some of the initiatives that the educational system is starting to tease out there. It would probably be a good idea, Garrett, if you haven't done something with Jim, to have a discussion with probably the mayor and the superintendent, because if your goal is to get kids to take different modes to their neighborhood schools, that's kind of in direct conflict with seemingly where the Norwalk Public Schools is going with their pathways and their magnet sort of programs, where they're encouraging you to apply to schools outside of your
Son of a bitch.
Who was that?
Billeen, do you mind muting Anthony? I think he didn't realize that he's not muted.
Yeah, so if you're being encouraged to have your student follow different pathways at schools that are outside of your neighborhood, then I don't think they're intending to provide busing for that, although I could be wrong. That's in direct conflict with trying to get kids walking and biking to school, because now you're like, well, the pathway school that I want my kid to go to is across town and I'm not being bused there, so I have to drive them and they can't walk and they can't bike. So, having these cross conversations is critical in instances like that, because I think everybody would agree the way to solve traffic is not to get all the school kids in the city to go to schools on the other side of town. So
It's a great point, Colin.
Put that in there.
Definitely know that there's a policy issue.
On this, but that's a complete crossing of goals.
Thanks. Moving on to my next question that I wrote down. For East Avenue, you've got $750,000. I want to applaud that, first of all. As you've said, we brought that up many times, and we're all looking forward to having this work done. You mentioned that $750,000 will go toward ideally both planning and design. Do you anticipate any of that being done in-house, or will that all be given to a consultant?
No, I think we anticipate that being entirely for a consultant. It's such a massive undertaking, and there's certain, like for example, surveying. There's facilities that resources that we don't have within house, and I think we found it more productive, to manage these projects, and it will result in a better end product. They have a larger team, a larger resource pool, and then I think we're always committed with doing these on time as well, so it'll help the project proceed forward.
Thanks. Next questions are about the NRVT. First of all, you mentioned this next leg that you're working on, that you hope to work on, is from Broad Street, the existing end, or the soon-to-be existing end, up to the Merritt, and that it will involve working with ConnDOT to identify exactly where the trail will cross the Merritt. Have those conversations already started? It seems like that will end up being the long pole in the tent.
So there's been preliminary conversations about the improvements and how we get a connection through, but I don't think a decision's been made at this point exactly where that connection is and how it's designed or engineered. So I think this is really showing providing a proof of concept and really what the city desires the network to look like. And then this will further the conversation. It's a lot different when what we really are looking at is having a connection designed for the north and then the south, and then finding a way that it's accommodated within any future interchange design.
Gotcha. Okay, that sounds great. Next question is about both NRVT item and the streetlights item. One thing that's been pointed out to me many times is that the NRVT lacks streetlights, and in particular that a lot of people feel unsafe using that part of the NRVT. In particular, what's been pointed out to me is the sections behind the old YMCA. Given that building is vacant at night, that feels to a lot of people as an unsafe place. Is that on your radar? And could potentially some of the money either allocated for NRVT or streetlights be used for that section?
Yeah, I think
for similar work.
Yes, and yes, I think with every project that we do moving forward, lighting is a huge component, especially when we're talking about pedestrian safety, whether it's just crossing an intersection or just making people feel comfortable. When people walk on streets and that are well lit, they feel really comfortable. So yeah, I think absolutely awesome. That's a consideration moving forward.
Cool. And then my very last question is, you mentioned sidewalks on Hunt Street that you're explicitly allocating or asking for $350,000 to be allocated for Hunt Street sidewalks. Does that, I remember a while ago, somebody from TMP presented, or there was, I think somewhere around, I can't remember the amount, but there was a lot of money allocated for a study of sidewalks around in that same area, but along Rowayton Avenue, essentially connecting the Rowayton Avenue Center to the train station. Is that part of this project, or is that a distinct project? And if so, how does that factor into the budget?
So this is a separate project. So what was previously allocated and a past budget was basically 50,000 to come up with just a really basic high level concept for Hunt and a portion of Witch Lane. We've already entered into design of the Witch Lane one. So this is really, and we've identified what the concept looks like for Hunt Street. So this is really just to get the funding necessary to complete that construction.
Gotcha. Am I misremembering that there was also a vision or a concept for Rowayton Avenue to connect to the train station?
Yeah, so that's a project that we're currently in design for. So that's a separate project. Yep. That hopefully we've had some coordination with Condat, but hopefully that'll be a project in construction this upcoming summer.
Oh, okay. So the money's already been secured for that.
Yes, yeah, the money's already been
Awesome.
secured for
Okay.
the Rowayton Avenue sidewalks. That's correct.
Right on. Well, I look forward to it. Those are all my questions. Ben, you had a quick follow-up question.
Yeah, when do you expect that this will go in front of the Common Council for approval? Or like, how does that work?
So I believe first it goes to the fiscal committees. I don't have the exact date, should be on the website. But it will go before the financial or the fiscal committee, and there'll be a public hearing, which I would encourage you to attend and voice some of the same concerns that you addressed tonight. But it also goes before the council to set a budget cap, before the Board of Estimation and Taxation. But there should be an outline online, and maybe Tanner, you could share that with the group. I don't have it in front of me. But it typically starts in February and then continues all the way to May. Over the course of that time period when the budget's going to be set and voted on.
Okay, so
I don't have the exact dates. I apologize.
No worries. I was just looking for ballpark. So coming up, but not like imminent that we're gonna get started.
You'll start
Thank
to see some of the public meetings occur, I believe, in the beginning or mid-February.
Cool.
We just
Sounds
wanted
good.
to be ahead of this and to give you some time to digest. I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
So Garrett, did you say that I should have that outline already, or that you'll send it to me? Because I'm not sure I did.
No, I'm not sure if it's been posted publicly on the website with
okay.
all the exact dates and times yet. But I can certainly follow up and get that information to you tomorrow.
That'd be great. If you do that.
Typically it's posted now or within a short time period. But I will add that as an action item.
Awesome. Seeing no other hands and acknowledging that we are already over time and we still have an outstanding agenda item, I will move on to that agenda item, and that is the Bike Walk Commission's budget. The first thing that I want to ask about is the one thing that we've already voted to spend money on for this fiscal year, which is 12 copies of Confessions of a Recovering Engineer to give out to members of the city. Judd, do you have an update on that?
I have no update. The request was that I purchased it from a brick and mortar store. And I think the store in New Canaan was the desired location, and I just haven't gone there.
Cool. Can you go there
but,
soon?
Probably not. I could go to Barnes and Noble in downtown Westport tomorrow, if that's okay. It's a brick and mortar.
I don't remember who asked that we do it from a local bookstore. I think it's still a good idea in concept.
Ben, as opposed to again, the Barnes and Noble in downtown Westport is a brick and mortar. It's just a large company, probably getting smaller by the day. But
yeah, I think that was that.
Judd, did you confirm
it up originally? But and I was going to do it to try to take some of the load, but I think it was decided that I can't, since I'm not an actual commissioner. I can't wield the power.
Well,
of
I think what we found out is, strictly speaking, that you can't be reimbursed. But theoretically, I think if I gave you my credit card and you went, you could do it. But at that point, I might as well just do it.
Yeah, but we wanted to use the commission budget for that.
Yeah, Tanner, I'll get it done between now and the next meeting.
Great, thanks, Judd.
Okay.
So The bulk, though, I think the spirit of this agenda item was that we talk about what we're going to spend the remaining $9,900 of our budget. We do always work with Delene, who dutifully takes our notes and does a great job. In past years, that's come out to just under $2,000 to pay Delene for her time. So I imagine that we will keep doing that unless anybody has an objection. But if you have an objection, I hope that it comes with a an offer to take the notes yourself, because somebody's got to do it. But otherwise, our budget is $10,000 per year. Last year we had an item on the proposed budget to purchase materials for the NRVT grand opening, which has been delayed and should, in all probability, happen during this current fiscal year. So I think that we can roll that one over. We allocated, or estimated $1,500 for that to purchase things like banners and potentially to pay a musical group to come to the event, other event related expenditures. Meetings should be kicking off in the next week or two to plan that. And so by next month, I should be able to get back to you guys with a much better estimate of what we'd like to spend on that. But otherwise, we should get a good sense of what we want to spend the rest of our budget on, so that we can get that ball rolling. In past years, for those who haven't been with us, we've done admittedly a poor job of getting our expenditures together before the end of the fiscal year, and have even had emergency last-minute meetings to vote on budget at the end of June, which I'd like to avoid doing this fiscal year. So I'll entertain any options, any proposals for how to spend our budget this year. Phil, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. So we're trying to put together something for the Norwalk Bicycle Co-op. I don't know if you guys would be interested. I'm trying to line some stuff out. Are planning to do 2 spring like bicycle tune-ups and kind of like a pop-up thing. I could certainly forward like a list of materials or supplies or things like that. Or if you guys want to like have like helmets or something like that, that's certainly something we can do if you're interested. I don't think you had a chance to take a look at, I sent you something offline there a few weeks ago.
Yes, you did. And I am sorry that since I have been on vacation for a while, I haven't taken a look at it. But I will do that. But at a high level, your suggestion is that the Bike Walk Commission could partner with the co-op for some events, particularly where a little bit of money would help to improve whatever event the co-op is putting on. Is that right?
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll write that down.
We can kind of look at everything and see. Ultimately, my ideas were 2 in the spring, 2 in the summer, 1 in the fall, and 1 pre-Christmas. There's a lot of people buy bikes for their kids before Christmas, and they typically will buy them at like Walmart or Dick's or something like that don't really come ride ready, not always safe, and not everybody that purchases those bikes has the tools and capabilities to bring that up to something that's safe, rideable. And when you take a look at what I have, you'll see.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll take a look at it and get back to you. At a high level, though, in the past, the co-op's been able to put on events basically for free. We've covered, basically Sam and I have covered all of the parts that we've needed out of pocket. And we've gotten some parts donated as well from local bike shops. So conceivably, we could continue to do that. But I'll take a look at your concept. And if you found ways to like meaningfully improve the service that the co-op can provide to the community with a little bit of extra money, then I think that that's something that would be worthy of including in the budget. Emily, go ahead.
I wanted to quickly mention that the street project documentary I brought up at the beginning of the meeting as well. I don't know if we would need budget for this, but they are interested in partnering with Norwalk for a screening. And I don't know if we've done something like this in the past with, like screening documentaries or getting communities together, but that was one thing that I thought would be good to, connect on. And I'll forward this email to the commissioners. The other thing though was I I was interested, I know we did swag in our last budget. There was an allocation for like those helmets and the backpacks, but something I really like and I think would be really useful, especially for bikers and walkers in Norwalk, is the reflective jackets. And specifically, I'm thinking of the one that Ben has that's really cool with the logo. I think it could be kind of fun if we had like a bike walk commission reflective jacket, but that's like, I don't know, kind of just throwing that out there. But those were some ideas.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the idea. Specifically what Emily's referring to, our jackets, Ben has one that says Bike Lane Uprising. But they're reflective jackets for cyclists to help people be visible at night. So when you ride in front of a headlight, it reflects the light directly back at the car. So that's a cool idea. But generally, I think swag is a good idea, with one caveat that maybe we should use a different vendor this time, because we still haven't received the swag that we ordered months and months ago from the vendor that we chose this time around.
Hey,
But
Tanner,
we definitely, go ahead.
sorry,
Greg.
just to chime in real quick, we've talked, internally and to try to avoid something like that going forward, is to get everything, because usually, if we do purchase items, we don't pay for items until we receive them. And
Oh, and we didn't do that this time around.
Well, no, because we had to spend the money by June 30th. And
see,
we waited
yes.
till 0 hour to get the order in, so we had, if we didn't spend it if we spent it on July 1st, then that's next year's budget, and away goes the previous year. So
Yes,
to
that makes
avoid
sense.
that, we would like to, by April, have everything in order. So that we don't have to wait till June 30th to put an order in and have to pay for it, and then now we're waiting for items to come in that were already paid for, and now we're on the hook for it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
We
I
want to
think
try to avoid that. So these decisions need to be made sooner rather than later. And, it's January now. So if we can do
Yeah.
that by April, that'd be great.
I think that there's a great case to be made for ordering more swag. The last event that we had, I think all the swag did go quite quickly. We were able to give it out. Is that right? Emily, you were there. Ben, you were there too. And
Yeah,
Judd,
it's
you were there too.
flying
Yes.
off the shelves. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I like Emily's idea about the reflective vests or jackets that say, Norwalk Bike Walk Commission.
I stole the idea from Christine, to be honest. She mentioned it one
Oh.
time and I saw Ben's jacket and I was like, ooh, I'm like putting those ideas together.
I just, in terms of our current vendor, I contacted him 2 weeks ago, told him we needed everything within 2 weeks, and he said he would have it to us within 2 weeks. So after this meeting, I'll give him a call and give him a prod. See
Yeah,
what's going on.
I can certainly see the value of what Greg described in paying for things on delivery instead of on ordering. Because that gives gives the vendor a lot more incentive to deliver the stuff, right? So yes, Greg, that's a great point. I think, is there somebody, Judd, I know that you've had a lot on your plate recently. Is there somebody that could take on putting together a swag order, putting together like a specific proposal with dollar amounts that we could vote on like at the next meeting, so that we can go ahead and get the order in like after the next meeting?
Tanner, I think we want to order a lot of the same stuff. The helmets are valuable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's nothing wrong with the set of stuff that we have. But also I think that we could potentially, switch stuff out or add other things like Emily described.
Or bike locks.
I'm just asking somebody to spend some time offline thinking about it, doing a little research and putting together a proposal.
Tanner, one also thing to also consider, when getting these items, like, obviously like bike locks and everything, those are small items, easy to store, but the storage component, because they need to be shipped to the city. We're going to store them at the Yankee Doodle Garage storage room, but that's only so big of storage that we have. So just keep in mind what you're ordering, like size wise. Because like the helmets, for instance, those are pretty good
Yeah,
size.
they take up a lot of room.
So they take up a lot of room. So just be cognizant of how much you're ordering of large items, especially to make sure we have the storage for them, because they have to be shipped to us. sign off on them and they need to be stored there. And then we'll coordinate, whenever you guys need them, we'll coordinate that pickup and whatnot. But we just want to make sure we have enough room to store everything as well.
Gotcha.
So just keep that in mind.
Okay. I guess that rules out then my idea to order 100 of those big inflatable exercise balls with our logo on them. It sounds like those won't fit in the storage room.
Pre-inflated, right?
Oh yeah, I guess we can ship them deflated. Okay, then that idea is still on the table. Great. I do want to call out as far as budget items, given that public education sounds like it should be definitely a big part of our strategic plan, that we set aside some money, and we need to flesh this out a little bit more, but set aside some money to really devote resources to educating the public, whether that looks like a digital ad campaign. Maybe we actually pay somebody to put together some sort of digital campaign. Maybe we pay for digital ads. I have always dreamt about putting up a billboard like by a road, by an interstate, that says something about transportation that isn't like explicitly profit driven. But I'm not sure that that's within our budget. I have no idea how much a billboard costs, but like some sort of public education campaign. It seems obvious to me that we can have more impact if we put some resources toward it. I just don't know exactly what that looks like. And maybe Emily, since you work in that space, you can advise on that. Any ideas off the top of your head, or do you want to spend some time chewing on that and come back with some more concrete thoughts next time?
I can definitely come back with some opportunities and ideas.
Great. Ben, go ahead.
Sort of on the previous topic of like things we could buy to like give out would be bike lights. Bike
that's an excellent
Enterprising,
idea.
which does my jacket that I've got. They have a drive every year, or like multiple times a year, where they'll like buy a bunch of bike lights and then give them out to people who don't have them. And they operate in like a bunch of different cities. So
Yeah, I think that's
I
an
don't know where
excellent
they get
idea.
them from.
Not only go ahead,
Or
sorry.
go ahead, sorry. You go first.
Yeah, I think bike lights are a good idea for a few reasons. One, they don't take up much space in the storage room. They're not that expensive, and they have a huge impact on safety for bikes. Basically, if you don't have a light and you're riding at night, it's an obvious improvement. It's like the single most effective improvement you can make for your own safety on your bike, arguably more than wearing a helmet, because you're just invisible without a light. I think that even it's the law that you have to have a front and back light. I'm not sure if it's a law in Connecticut, but in Utah it was certainly, where I lived previously. So, but go ahead. You had another point.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could even reach out to the people over at Bikeline Uprising and see what vendor they use, because I'm guessing they do like a big bulk order, and I don't know how much they are. But I can't imagine.
Yeah, if you could just find out.
Yeah, I can.
I think that we have. There have been advantages to ordering everything from the same vendor in the past.
Okay. I didn't know that everything that we had so far came from the same place, or where it came from. I didn't.
It did.
Wasn't super involved in all that.
Greg or Judd, do you mind? Could you remind us what the advantage is to putting everything on the same vendor?
Well, and for procurement purposes, we have to get you have to get 3 bids based upon what we're ordering per city procurement rules. So, every different vendor you choose from, you have to get 2 to 3 bids depending on the cost of that. So by ordering everything from one vendor, you have one fixed price. 2 vendors, 3 vendors give you the same order, and then they give you the quote.
That makes sense.
Gotcha. So the more you split up the orders, that every order has to have 3 different bids.
More quotes. Like if you want to order bike locks from one company, helmets from another company, and lights from another company, you have to get 2 or 3 of each item.
Yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead, Ben.
No, I didn't have anything else to add to that. I guess we just have to find a place that can do all of the existing stuff and also bike lights. But I'm guessing any place that can handle helmets could probably handle lights too.
Yeah, or the alternative is that we just get twice as many bids, right? That we split it into 2 orders, and you find the vendor that you like, and then you find a couple other vendors that you also like, and you get bids from each of them. Like I ultimately it's just an issue of legwork, right? Like if you're willing to do the legwork, to go get 3 bids on lights and then 3 different bids on helmets, then it's just as well, I think. Is that right, Greg?
I'm sorry, say it again, Tanner?
If we do in fact come up with all the different bids,
Yep.
then that's all the work that needs to be done, right? Like it's
Yeah,
it's
as
no
long
more
as-
work on your side.
No, it's just submitting, so basically you would submit the quotes to us and then we would hand over to purchasing and then it would go, it's no different than from if our department wanted to order something. We have to do the
Yeah.
same thing. So, yeah, so it's no different.
Sure,
So as
but
long
my
as you
point is
guys
that
are able
if-
to- Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
if we do the legwork of finding a bunch of bids, then
Correct.
that doesn't increase the work that you have to do.
No, it's just
Great,
going
okay.
through the procurement channels, that's all.
Gotcha. Make sense, Ben?
Yeah, maybe you and I could align later on some of the like details of that to not take up everyone else's time, because I think there's some stuff
Sure.
that I don't know about it yet, but I'd be
And I
curious.
don't want to deter you from ordering from multiple vendors, because if one product is better from another company, then by all means, but, we'll just have to get, a couple, 2 or 3 quotes from various companies, that's all.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, I think it's valuable for us to all just understand how the process works, and I think we understand it better now. So thanks, Greg. Last thing I wanted to point out on the budget front is that we could do again what we did last year and use some of our budget to sponsor somebody from the city or somebody from the commission to go to some sort of convention or conference. For those who aren't familiar, this last summer, I and Vanessa, who's now the Chief of Operations and Public Works, attended the 2-day seminar on walkable cities by Jeff Speck. It was an excellent experience, and I think that that's one of the most impactful things that we've done recently in being able to get Vanessa to that seminar. So we've also in the past kicked around the idea of sending somebody to the summit, the League of American Bicyclists National Summit in Washington, D.C., which I believe is in March every year. That's another option, but there's a whole host of conferences that people could go to or seminars people could go to. In particular, the Walkable City one does occur every year. So I just want to throw that out there so people could chew on. If you find a conference that you think would be worth paying some of our budget money to send somebody to, please do bring it up. But I'm not asking for ideas right now, just to put that on the idea list. So any other ideas before we move on to the end of the meeting? Awesome. Yeah, let's wrap this up then. Emily mentioned the documentary called The Street Project. I just wanted to say a couple words, and Emily, fill in if you have more details, because I just found out about it today. But there's an independent filmmaker in West Hartford in Connecticut that recently came out with this documentary called The Street Project, which is about the global movement to make safer streets. And I haven't seen it yet because it's being released through these local screenings, like the one in Fairfield that Emily pointed out. That's I think next Thursday. But you mentioned that they're interested in having one in Norwalk. Did somebody reach out to you about that, Emily?
Yes, I just responded to the email. This woman named Chelsea Yamada is the impact producer.
Oh, I know her. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Well, so
she works with Transalt.
Great. Yeah. I think there's an opportunity for the screening of it to happen in Norwalk, but yeah, I said we're open to connecting with her, and if that's something we can do, that would be really great.
Go ahead, Judd.
Tanner, I need to go. I just want to make sure you have enough people to approve the minutes and stuff.
Yeah, we got Sam, Colin, Emily, and me. So I think you can go.
Okay.
Or we can vote on the minutes right now.
Okay.
Do you have a preference? Do you want to be there for that vote?
Yeah, I haven't read them. I tend not to read them if they're not attached to the agenda. So I don't go online to seek them out. So I haven't.
Does it suffice in past agendas? I've included a hyperlink to the notes. Is that enough for you, or would you prefer that I attach the actual PDF?
Yeah, that might work better. Yeah, I know you've done that.
Okay,
so
I'll do that in the future. Or if I have Greg put the agenda together, I'll have him do that.
Do that. Yep.
Cool. Noted for the future. I'll do that. Or I'll make sure it's done.
Thank you.
So, thanks for coming, Judd.
Okay,
To wrap up this item about the documentary, I think that having a screening in Norwalk is a great idea. In particular, Brad at Eco Evolution has offered his space for basically whatever event we'd like to hold. The most recent Sustainable Streets Happy Hour, which I guess I should report on, we had one. It was in mid-December and it was great. We got a lot of new people there. That seems like a decent space if we can get like a projector and a screen there. So Emily, since you are very conveniently located, do you mind asking Brad if it's feasible to do a screening there?
I think it might be a bit small. I was thinking more of reaching out to our contact at the library, because I know the library would have the right setup for that sort of thing. But I'm happy to
that's a
also
good point.
reach out to Brad and see. But that way we can accommodate more people and have like AV set up.
Yeah, Emily,
Yeah,
you could
that's a good
also
point.
reach out to Stepping Stones. I can put you in touch with the director of facilities there. They've hosted events in the past when like Jeff Speck gave a talk here. He was at Stepping Stones, and I think Sam Schwartz was at the aquarium, but that's another option.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome. Yeah, Emily, do you mind taking point on that?
Yep, I can do that.
Cool. Alrighty. Maybe I'll go to the one in Fairfield and then go to the one in Norwalk as well. All right.
Just, I mean,
I
quickly, I'm
think-
planning on going and I'm going to take the
Yeah.
train. It's right next to the train station.
Oh, it is. Awesome. Well, I'll do it with you.
I was gonna
Okay,
drive, but now I
that's
feel guilty, so I'll meet you on the train.
Take the train to the,
Brian, you live right next to a train station.
But East Norwalk only gets like half the trains.
That's true. It's true. There's no lies detected. Okay, let's wrap this up. Any other business that somebody would like to conduct before we vote on the minutes and adjourn? Great. Thanks everybody who stuck with us this long. In particular, Harvey, since it's your first time, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. I'll entertain a motion to vote on the minutes. Because I've been on vacation, admittedly, I have not read them. But Delene, like I said, reliably does a great job taking notes. I will read them after this and provide edits if there are any glaring edits needed. But I don't know, maybe that breaks the spirit of actually voting on them if no one's read them. So in theory, we could postpone the vote till next meeting when at least somebody has read them.
the minutes look good to me. I would vote to approve them. I read them.
Great. Emily has moved to approve the minutes. Sam has seconded. All in favor? Given that Emily has read them, I'm happy to vote
Okay.
in favor of approving them. That's a majority, so it passes. Thanks everybody for coming. And our next meeting is in February on the 6th, which is the first Monday as usual. And I hope to see you all then. Thanks again. See ya.
Everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Everyone.
Hey.